Maybe he's dead.
Mine's breathing. I can see the blanket moving up and down.
Boy, what we could do with this freak on our team.
Forget it. First place, he's going to some lab. They're going to be cutting on this guy and shoving tubes up his ass for years.
What?
I often sit here like this at the end of the day in darkness and imagine what it must be like. Did you feel yourself change? Did you pray?
In the early 1990s, Chevy Chase was at a crossroads in his career. He'd headlined a series of comedy hits in the 80s, including the National Lampoon's vacation films, 2 Fletch movies, and a few others, but he had some brutal flops too.
Call me Mr. Lamb Fries.
Now there's a man who knows when he's got something good in his mouth.
Funny Farm, which was underrated, and Caddyshack 2, which definitely was not.
Will you please suck out the poison for me?
Did very poorly at the box office, but Nothing But Trouble in 1991 was a nearly career-ending disaster for all involved.
Frequently undesirables are put to death. Oh, sure, I can understand that, Judge.
All of a sudden, Chase's future as a leading man looked bleak.
That's the double death.
Rather than double down by doing another comedy, he opted to stretch a bit, signing on to star in a comic thriller in the vein of one of his first big hits, Foul Play, Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
You know, I never realized how important it is to be seen, acknowledged.
Which was to feature cutting-edge special effects and sports direction by one of the biggest genre filmmakers of all time, John Carpenter. Memoirs of an Invisible Man is based on a book by H.F. Saint, his only novel in fact, which became a hot property in Hollywood in the late 80s. This was the era of high concept, and an effects-driven comedy about the Invisible Man seemed like a no-brainer in the wake of hit movies like Ghostbusters.
Mother huss bucket.
In fact, it was initially to have been directed by Ivan Reitman, with a screenplay by no less than The Sting's William Goldman. Goldman wrote at length about his miserable time writing the script in his book, Which Lie Did I Tell?, with him saying Reitman clashed with Chase over the film's tone and left the project. Goldman himself did not have an easy time of it, as he assumed he was writing comedy based on Chase's talents, but the star did not see it that way, with him hoping the film would push him into new territory. In Goldman's book, Chase is slammed for this, and while Chase has never been the most popular guy off screen, you do have to feel for him a little bit, as he likely saw this as the movie that maybe would pave the way towards a more varied career.
I want my molecules back! Look at me! It's him.
In his early days, Chase was often compared to Cary Grant, and this was very much in that mold, being a light romantic thriller.
What are we doing?
I hope it's foreplay.
Those types of movies did do well at the box office, with Gene Wilder in particular having a huge hit in that vein with Silver Streak. Eventually, Richard Donner, who would likely have been perfect for this film, became involved, only to eventually quit the production. His replacement was a highly unusual choice, John Carpenter.
I've got him crossing 7th Street back toward Market.
The horror director had been out of work for a few years, having been embroiled in a lawsuit with the company behind They Live, Alive Films.
What's your problem?
Carpenter no doubt saw this as a solid opportunity to try working with a major studio again, with having the potential to be his most mainstream film since Starman. In the end, Carpenter said he had a miserable time making the movie, slamming Chase for being uncooperative and unwilling to follow the instructions set by Industrial Light and Magic to get the VFX work done, with him often refusing to wear the bodysuit needed to render him invisible on camera or removing his VFX makeup prematurely.
You are without a doubt the biggest bullshit artist I've ever worked for.
Thank you, Kathy.
Carpenter has since said that he wanted to quit making movies after this due to his nightmare experiences with He Who Shall Not Be Named But Needs to Be Killed, likely meaning Chevy Chase.
What's the matter? Something wrong?
However, he did praise working with Sam Neill, who plays the film's antagonist and would go on to star in another Carpenter film, In the Mouth of Madness, which is a great one.
Yeah, that's reality. Not reality.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
But what about the movie itself? I vividly remember watching Memoirs of Invisible Man at my 11th birthday party and being somewhat blown away by the special effects, with one of the coolest being a scene early on where Chase's character proves his invisibility by chewing a piece of gum. Watching it now, I do understand why audiences may have been put off by it. Chase had the tendency to get smarmy in many of his movies, and while this was something audiences and critics didn't mind in the 70s, and even in his Fletch movies, it didn't apply all that well to a film like this.
Hi, George. How's the spastic colon?
But Chase does dial it down a bit after the first act, which kind of plays like a regular Chevy Chase comedy.
Looking for something, Nick?
Once he becomes invisible, it's a solid little thriller, although he doesn't really have great chemistry with his leading lady, Daryl Hannah, who's a touch stiff.
Am I gonna regret meeting you?
You already do.
In it, Chase's businessman inadvertently becomes invisible when he takes a nap at a lab he's supposed to be attending a lecture at because he's hungover, where an experiment goes awry. Now invisible, he finds himself on the run from the CIA, who want to use Nick as an invisible agent, something he's not very keen on.
You can't escape. Believe me, wherever you go, whoever you tell, it all comes back to me.
Running a lean 99 minutes, Memoirs of an Invisible Man isn't perfect, but it's a solid, high-concept thriller that does something original. It makes the Invisible Man a good guy. While it does show him struggling with the notion of being invisible, it also shows how Nick is able to use makeup and clothing to at least give himself a form.
Oh, Nick, you have a face again.
If I had eyes and teeth, it'd be a whole head.
Look, as much as people may not like him now, Chase was popular for a reason, and for a long time he was likable and funny.
You don't have any body makeup, do you? Dropped about 10 pounds. But I'd look great naked.
Whatever issues he may have had with Carpenter behind the scenes, they aren't really present on camera. However, it does need to be said that Memoirs definitely feels like Carpenter is on autopilot, with him not really bringing any of his trademark energy to the film. Not that he was likely allowed to by his producers and star. The only aspect of the movie that has Carpenter's seal of approval is Sam Neill's performance as the movie's villain, a very cool, overzealous CIA agent named Jenkins, with him so cool and charming that you almost wish it were him playing the Invisible Man instead.
I will cut off your testicles, I will lightly fry them, and Morrissey here will have them for lunch.
It's not a surprise that the next year he went on to star in Jurassic Park, as he is very, very good in this movie.
You want a job done? I'm doing.
The film also kicked off a solid scoring career for Shirley Walker, who was a replacement composer but contributed such a nice score that shortly after, she became a mainstay of Batman the Animated Series and would work again with Carpenter a few years later on Escape from LA. Despite the hefty budget and VFX work by ILM, Memoirs of Invisible Man was a big flop. It only made 14 or so million domestically, and its failure probably led to Chase's disastrous decision to host his own late-night talk show the next year, with his career never, ever recovering. As it is, Memoirs of Invisible Man has a reputation as a flop, but I still appreciate it, and as an effects-driven action comedy, it really isn't half bad.
That was memorable.
Just give me 10 minutes. Look at the moon or something.